I didn't notice when the room went quiet. It was already like that when I looked up, voices tapering off, utensils resting, attention drifting toward the center of the table where my mother sat, her hands folded loosely around a glass she hadn't touched. 75. There had been a cake earlier. Photos. My sister had arranged most of it, moving through the restaurant like she belonged to every table, every decision. People thanked her. She accepted it easily. I had taken a seat halfway down, close enough to be included, far enough to not interrupt the flow. That's where I was when my mother turned toward me, not sharply, not searching, just looking. Her eyes paused on my face, the way you pause on something you almost recognize. Then she asked simply, "Who are you?" It didn't feel like a question at first, more like a misplacement, like she had lost something small and expected it to be found quickly. I waited for the correction, for my sister to lean in, to say my name, to smooth it over. Instead, there was a brief, almost amused exhale from across the table. "Don't worry, Mom," my sister said, not even looking directly at me. "She's nobody important." A few people shifted in their seats. Someone reached for a glass. The moment wasn't dramatic enough to stop anything, just uncomfortable enough to be ignored. I watched my mother nod slightly, as if that explained everything, and then conversation resumed, not fully, not naturally, but enough. I sat there for a few seconds longer than I needed to. Long enough to understand that no one was going to correct it, that this version of me, unnamed, unnecessary, fit into the room more easily than the one I thought I was. So I stood up. No one asked where I was going. My sister glanced at me once, briefly, then back to the person beside her. The waiter stepped aside as I moved past. Outside, the air felt thinner than it should have. I didn't cry. I didn't feel much of anything immediately. Just a kind of stillness, like my body had decided to pause before reacting. I got into my car and sat there with my hands on the steering wheel, not starting the engine. "Who are you?" it echoed, but not as a wound. More like a question I hadn't answered properly for a long time. The drive to the attorney's office wasn't planned. But once I started moving, it felt like the only place that made sense. There are decisions you think you've already made, just because time has passed since you first considered them. You assume they've settled on their own. They don't. They wait. When I walked into the office, I realized how much I had left undefined. My sister had power of attorney. It had been arranged years ago, temporary, practical. I was traveling often then, less available. She was better with these things. That's how it was explained. I had agreed without asking many questions. At the time, it felt like trust. Now, sitting across from the attorney, it sounded different when described out loud. Not wrong, just imbalanced. He didn't react to the story. He didn't ask why. He simply outlined what existed and what could be changed. Clear. Procedural. Unemotional. For the first time that day, something aligned, not anger, not urgency, clarity. We reviewed documents, dates, signatures that carried more weight than I had treated them with. The language was precise in a way family conversations never are. I signed what needed to be signed. There was no sense of finality in it, just completion of something overdue. When I left, the day had already started to fade into evening. My phone had a few missed calls. My sister's name appeared once, then again. I didn't listen to the voicemail. I went home, changed, and sat by the window for a while without turning on the lights. The restaurant scene replayed once, then stopped. Not because I pushed it away. It just didn't expand the way I expected it to. By the next morning, more calls had come in. Short messages: "Call me. We need to talk." Nothing about what had happened at lunch. Only about access, about documents, about things that had quietly shifted overnight. I read them without responding. By Monday morning, the changes were official. The attorney's office confirmed it. Notifications had been sent. Authority had been reassigned, not to anyone else, just removed. It was a small distinction, but it mattered. Around midday, my phone rang again. My sister. I let it ring until it stopped, then again. Then a message. "What did you do?" I looked at the words for a moment. There was no confusion in them, no concern, just disruption. I typed a response once, deleted it. There wasn't anything I needed to explain that hadn't already been made clear through other means. The system had spoken in a way conversations never had. Later that week, I passed by the same restaurant. I didn't go in. Just slowed slightly as I drove past, noticing how ordinary it looked. No trace of anything that had happened there. That felt accurate. Places don't hold meaning on their own. People assign it, then carry it with them. I thought about going back at some point. Sitting at a table alone, rewriting the moment in some small way, but I didn't. It didn't feel necessary. My mother hasn't called. I don't know if she remembers the question she asked, or the answer she was given. My sister has stopped trying to reach me. Not immediately. It took a few days. Then it tapered off. What remains isn't resolution. It's distance, not the kind that leaves things open. The kind that holds its shape. For a while, I kept thinking about how easily my place at that table had been reduced to nothing. how quickly it was accepted. Now, when I think about it, something else stands out. I didn't argue. I didn't correct them. I didn't try to reinsert myself into something that had already adjusted around my absence. I left, and for the first time, I didn't come back to the same position. There's no satisfaction in that. But there is something steady. Something that doesn't require anyone else to name it.